All right. Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back. It's been a while. We had a lot of stuff going on with our nonprofit. We had a big gala and a lot of things going on. And so we took a break from our Wednesday lives that we usually do, helping you with your nonprofit. So we could focus on ours for a little while in September. Here we are back. If I can get my camera right, here we go. And we are going to talk about finding people. We are going to talk about nonprofits are full of people, right? We need people, we need donors, right? We need volunteers, we need staff, we need so many different people, so many different areas. And so I am just pulling up my notes because I had a busy morning, actually talking with Kenya and getting some things settled there, talking about different things. And so I want to pull those up so I don't miss anything and leave any of that out. But people are the key. I think what we let me not project me onto you, and let me say me. When I started my nonprofit, I felt like if I just had the money, everything would be fine. And the focus was really about let me just find the money, get the money, and as I get the money, all these other things will fall into place. Can anyone relate to that? But the reality is, it's the people that you need more than the money. As you have the people, the money will come. So that is the big takeaway from today, is the idea that people are the key. It's not the money. The money will come as you have the right vision and you're in the right place, and all these different things. The people come, because the money without the right people is of no value to you. In fact, you'll end up wasting the money. So be patient in the money area and be very hyper vigilantly focused on the people. And I want to share with you some notes. The first thing I want everyone to do is assess what people do we need. And again, I want to find these notes. So give me 1 second while I go and find them. So while I do that, I want you to start assessing your needs. Where is it that you need help? Do you need help in technology? Do you need help in social media? Do you need help? Like, where is it that you need help? Right? So I want you to take 2 or 3 minutes here and write that out. Pray. It's a prayerful thing. Some of it is just like logistic, like you might not be an organized person, so you need someone to help you organize events, like whatever that is. So take a minute and write that out. Like, where is it? We're going to assess where we need our people. So write that down. It's important to write it down. So as you do that, I'm going to do this over here. Okay. I did not have a timer, so I'm not sure if that was a minute or not. But either way, we're moving on. You can press pause if you need to and come back. But that's the most important step, right? Like, if in fact I'm writing a book, and through that I was writing about the people chapter. And what I spend, and I'm probably still guilty of in some ways, like when someone comes to me and wants to help, I try and create a space for them to help. And that's not being a good leader. That's being just led by the waves, right? Like whoever happens to show up, you're just kind of being led by the waves. And so we want to make sure we're clear, where do we need help, and let's stay focused there, and not just be led just because someone wants to come in. They might be able to do something to help, and that's fine, but then it shouldn't be your focus, right? I'm not saying that you can't have other people, outside of that list help, but it's your focus needs to stay focused as the leader on moving the organization forward. And to do that, we need to know where our needs are, because how are we going to find the people if we don't even know what we need them for? How are they, even if they were sitting right in front of you, which a lot of times they are, you don't even know that, because you don't have a really good kind of handle on what are your actual needs. Okay, so that is the first thing. You might need them for social media, you might need events, you might need board members, you might need mentors or accountability. The story in Mark 10, I think it starts at 51, and the idea of Jesus asking the blind man, he says to him, What do you want me to do for you? And it's kind of like, duh, like he wants you to heal him, right? He wants you to give him sight, like he's blind. You told us that, right? But that idea of like, we need to be clear on what we want, what we want Jesus to do for us, right? Just like he was to the blind man. And because what he goes on to say, so that's this is Mark 10:51 and 52. It says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." And then Jesus replies, "Go," Jesus said, or said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Right? He promises to meet the needs that we have. Okay, they need to be needs, and it needs to be within his will and all of those things. But if he's called you to this vision, he is going to provide you with the provision, and the provision is money, and that is a part of it. And we focus a lot on that. But it's really even deeper than that. It's the people, and that's more important. And so we need to be clear on what people we need. And it needs to be written out, not in our heads, not in a, well, if they come, I'll let them know. Like, it has to be written out. We need to be praying for them. One way that we do that a lot, and I share this a lot, so if I've already shared this, forgive me, but I think I've shared it on coaching, not so much on our lives. And it's Shawnee and I call it kind of the brain dump, and we like to use multicolored pens for this because that's just fun. And who doesn't like fun? And so you create these circles, and then you start filling the circles. I'm just going to do a handful here. So you find whatever piece of paper you got, and you create these circles, and you start writing in these circles, like, what are our needs? And some of them will rise to the top. It'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, I need someone for social media. So then you write social media in one of those circles. And then it's like, well, I can't stand doing the accounting. So then we're gonna put accounting in one of the circles, right? I am horrible at organizing events. I've never done it before, and I'm just not an organizing person. I'm a visionary. I'm not the details, right? So then we need someone to come alongside us and maybe help with events, right? And so then we write these things out. And then maybe there's a box even for us, like, what is my strength? Where is that for me? So like for me, I am pretty good at events. Like, that's my organizing is my jam. So I really love the events. And so that one for me, I would write like, this one's me. I'm going to star that. That one's for me. But then it's these other circles that it's like, accounting is not for me. And these other areas are not for me. And so then we have it written, and we can keep it before us. And so then when we're out and about and we're at maybe a networking event, or we're at church, or we're wherever it is we're at, these things are before us. So I would rip this out and I would keep it like right here at my desk, and I'm still looking for someone for that accounting, and that reminder to pray. So we pray over this. We pray over this to create the list. And we also pray over this as we're looking to fill those roles, because we also don't want to fill those roles with just anybody, right? Just because someone's good at accounting doesn't mean they're meant for you and your organization. So we need to be praying that through, and we want to start with little projects, and then we move them to bigger and bigger projects. And we'll talk about that more as we go along. So this is going to be, I think it's a 3-part mini series. So this is part 1. And the gist of this is assessing our needs. What are our needs? And so that's what today is really going to cover. We need to keep our priorities focused. And what are our real priorities? I will tell you, in my journey along this way, especially when it comes to graphic arts, because I am not a graphic artist at all. And I really literally cannot do it. Like, there's some things I'm not good at, or I don't like to do. But there's other things that I cannot do. And I just don't have the genes for graphic artistry. I don't have them, obviously, for drawing either. And I don't have them on the computer either. And so I cannot do that. And so I always was at the mercy, of a volunteer. And so I would need to find a volunteer, and I would always want to keep that role filled, because it was something that I needed all the time. I mean, I need lots of different things in ways that we needed that. And so it was just a role that I needed filled all the time. And sometimes I would leave people in that role, and we'll talk more about this in a later time, but leave people in that role just to have a name there, even if they weren't actually doing the work, right? Like, I've got this person, and she's a graphic artist, and once in a while she'll actually get the work done, but most of the time not. And if it is, it's 2 weeks late, or whatever. But it was but at least I have a graphic artist, and I would hold on to that person like for my life's bread, because it was I need a graphic artist. I can't do it, and we need one. And so I would hold on to someone that would say they would do things, but really would never end up doing them, or for the most part would not end up doing them. And so then that role is filled, or at least in my mind, it kind of is, right? But the person's not doing the work. And so it's creating frustration. Things aren't getting done. The organization's not moving forward, all of those things. And so I caution you to leave people in roles that aren't actually doing the work. We need to empty the role before God can bring the next person to fill it, or before we're even out there looking to fill it again, right? And just asking and spreading the word, okay? So don't do that. But really, when it comes to priorities, the biggest thing is you do not need a volunteer. You need Christ. As we seek him, he will lead us and guide us to the right people to help and support or hire for the organization, whatever that might look like. In the end, all you need in all of life and in your nonprofit is Christ. As you are following him, he will bring all the right people. He will bring all the funds you need. The vision coming from him is all you need. As we're clear on that, the rest of these details will unveil themselves. Now, there's certain places you're going to want to go. There's certain, tricks and trades that you're going to want to know. And that's what we do at Christian Rocketeers behind the scenes with our coaching clients is help you through all that and help you through it quickly. Because we've been through it already many, many times and helped other people through it. And so that's what we do over there. But the reality is that all you need is Christ. That's all you need for your life. And that's all you need for your nonprofit. It's going to take you a long time, though, if that's all you have there. And he's going to lead you to the people. And then you're going to need to say yes to those people. And sometimes that means you're going to need to invest in those people. It might be, as staff, or it might be as coaches, or it might be as an accountant, or whatever that might look like. But you're going to need to take that jump. And it's scary. I get it. It's super scary. I don't want to commit myself to a monthly payment. I don't want to commit to those things, but yet you're not going to grow and you're not going to have what you need. And he's not going to bring you more if you're not going to live by faith. Now, it's a prayerful thing. We don't just jump and say, okay, I'm going to hire people for everything. There's a journey here. We pray and we ask him, what is it we need? Where do we go for that need? Is it a volunteer or is it a paid position? What are those expectations? What do I really want out of this person? When I say social media, what does that mean? Am I looking for a funding campaign? Am I looking for day-to-day, just sharing what we're doing? I need to be clear on what these roles in my circles actually mean. And some of that will determine whether or not you would pay someone for that role or not. And that's a Holy Spirit decision as well as you're going through that. And so you got to get very specific. So for social media, I think of social media as two different things. One would be a campaign. And that would be hey, I'm doing a Facebook fundraiser. I'm doing some kind of campaign that I'm looking to bring money in to the organization. So that would be a campaign. But then we also have what I call daily social media. And I don't know, these are the technical terms. Shawnee is the expert in that area. So these are just the words that I use. But I call it daily social media. And that means I'm out there sharing what are we doing and how are we doing it? What is the life transformation happening from that? And just sharing. And every month might be a different topic. This month might be, joy or Thanksgiving or, whatever it might be. And following that topic, or it's oh, hey, we're just going to share what we're doing in our ministries, or here's some success stories or whatever that is, but some daily outreach. So people know that what you're doing and what you're doing. So when you come to a campaign, they can see the history of all your stories and what you've done and how you're doing it and all of that. And then the money, ask comes out and it's oh, wow, they're doing some awesome stuff. Yeah, let me donate to that. Right. If I'm just out there, every quarter or every, 6 months or whatever saying, hey, I need money. No one's going to donate to that. They want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it and the life transformation that it's out there and the idea of thanking them, right? So in the campaign, you do all of those things, but previous to the campaign and just daily, you need to remind people that you're out there. Maybe it's not daily for you, but it's often. Okay. It's not just about getting out there for the money. It's about sharing what God is doing in the world and the lives that are being transformed because of your program and within your program, and saying thank you for the people that have already been there, to get you to the point where you're at right now. So those are important. So that I hope that's clear. So that's just one example of being clear on what I want. Accounting. So there's another example. So what do I really want in accounting? Do I want someone to do my monthly accounting? Am I looking for someone to do my 990s and just my year-end tax returns? What is it that I'm looking for? And I need to be clear on that, because if I'm not clear on that, even if I get someone in that role, you're going to make them miserable and you're going to be miserable trying to manage them, because we think of volunteers as like, oh, now I have less on my plate. This is awesome. But the reality is, you actually have more on your plate until you train them. And if you're not clear what you're training them in, and they're not clear on what their role is, the whole thing is just a hodgepodge mess, and you're not going to be able to retain good quality volunteers. So we need to have organization and structure, both in the systems that we have behind the scenes, and we teach you that at Christian Rocketeers, and in the different systems that you have, so you can share the work with them, but then also in what you need and how you need it and when you need it. So we've got to get very specific. So, we sit there saying, oh, we need volunteers, I need volunteers, I need volunteers, but for what? And really, really specifically. And as you do that, I will tell you, God usually like raises someone up in my mind, like, oh, maybe, this person would be really good at this or would enjoy this. And then I reach out and ask, and a lot of times they are. Now, in the early years, it was pretty much begging, and it was different. But now it's like through the systems, through prayer and being very specific, he'll reveal people. And then those people tend to stay longer because it's easy. It's simple. It's not a huge project to take on a volunteer project from us, because it's organized, it's ready, it's relevant, it's there. And then we're saying thank you as well. So, all right. So number 1, be clear, assess your needs. Number 2, clearly define those needs, not just social media, but what exactly in social media do you need help with? Number 3, keeping priorities. You do not need a volunteer. You need Christ, and keep that as your focus, and he will bring you the people. And again, I just love Mark chapter 10, verses 51 to 52. This isn't just relevant to volunteers. That idea of, what do you want from me? Jesus is asking you, what do you want from him? This relates to provision. This relates to our own lives. This relates to so much. Like, what do we really want? And really what we should want, the highest want, of course, is a tighter relationship with Christ. As we seek that, the rest will come. And then we can say, like, okay, what's next for our vision? And we ask him that, and we get clear on that. And then it comes down to, volunteers. And then it comes after volunteers, not so much volunteers, because it could be staff as well. So it comes down to people. And then it comes down to provision. So make sure we keep our priorities straight. Number 1, Christ. Number 2, people. Number 3, provision. So that's kind of the summary of priorities. The other part when it comes to people, and this is hard because people are people. I'm people, and so I hurt people. I do things that hurt people. I maybe am not as organized as I think I am, or I just whatever it is. Like, I say things or whatever that might look like, not intentionally, but people are people, and they're people-y. And sometimes that's really hard. Maybe, life gets in the way, but you have a big project, but they've got something major going on in their life, or maybe they say something that really hurts your feelings, or whatever that looks like. So it comes down to, what is the summary of what I'm trying to talk about here? Trust. Trust is not easy. And trust is necessary when it comes to running a nonprofit. And of course, it shows up in the area of really people and finances. Do we trust God in both of those areas? And so that's the key. We're not trusting the volunteer. We are trusting Christ. And he is then leading us, saying, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go with this person. And it may not work out the way you want. Like, it doesn't mean that that's perfect necessarily. But we know that there's a reason. And our volunteers and our staff, we should be pouring into them first and foremost spiritually. And then from there, it's the work that they do for us. And, if they're getting the work done and we're able to do that, then that's great. It's a good fit. We continue. Sometimes, they just need being poured into spiritually, and then they're not able to do the work, and that's fine, but you might not be the right person for that. Like, maybe you lead them to a Bible study or something else like that, versus you being that if they're not able to do the work that you need done as far as the ministry is concerned. So trust, we've got to build that trust muscle. And it's not easy, because volunteers especially, but staff as well, and people, will be disappointed. The Bible's clear on that, and it's just the way it is. People don't look at the world the same way. We have different lenses. There's just a lot of different pieces and parts that go with that. And it doesn't matter. Like, we don't need to worry about that. We need to trust God is where we're trusting. And then from there, he'll send us the people. And if they disappoint, it's okay. We can release people without burden, without angst, without hurt, without heartache. And we can also not hold on to people that we think are filling a role that maybe aren't really able to deliver what they want to deliver right now, or are not just able to do that for whatever reason. So we can let them be free to be them as we're free to be us, and then come together in that relationship. So those are the 3 points that I really wanted to cover today. Number 1, assess your needs and get detailed. Write it out. Get very, very detailed about what that looks like. So then once the person is there, number 1, it'll spark some of your memory of like, oh, maybe this person would be really good at that, or know somebody. And then number 2, and then getting very clear about that, and then get out there and ask. Like, we need to open our mouths. We need to be asking at church. We need to be asking, and we'll go over where places and things to ask, online as well as that way. Number 2, remember that we keeping our priorities straight, and that comes with Christ first, and then going down the line from there, and remembering to ask Christ, right? That idea of, what do you want from me? The blind man, he asked the blind man. And so let's go to Christ and say, okay, God, I need to fill this role of an accountant, or I need, I've got needs in the area of accounting. I need you to tell me where to go to find this person. And you need to pray that through, like literally ask him. And here's the key. And Shawnee and I were talking about this morning. Listen, expect that he will give you an answer, because he will. If you're seeking him with your whole heart and not people or money or other things, if you are seeking him with your whole heart, he will answer. He promises to. So slow down and listen. That's part of the prayer. That's the biggest part of the prayer, is slow down and listen and take notes. And then if they say no, if that person, for whatever reason, you ask somebody and they say no, this isn't a rejection of you. It's just saying that it's not time for the role. And a lot of people will say yes, even though it's not time for the role. So you've really got to ferret out the fact of, do they have bandwidth to take this on? Now, that being said, you usually want the busiest people, because they're the ones that actually are getting things done. So just because they're busy doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. Number 1, if they say yes and the bandwidth is working, then great, then keep on. If they're not able to do it and they're showing you're not able, then empty the role, so you need to fill it again, and let God bring that next right person. And then building the trust muscle. That's kind of all intertwined together. These things all kind of intertwine together a little bit, but building that trust muscle. If you've been hurt before, which we all have, we've got to go back and own our story. Like, where have we been hurt? What does that look like? How do we now respond defensively in different ways? We've got to get all of that junk out. And so my suggestion is writing out your story. And we talk a lot about that within our program, but writing out that story to get rid of that junk that's out there from previous hurts. So when someone disappoints you now, it's just about that person, and it's just not that big of a deal. We put them in small roles to start, so we can then, manage if they don't fulfill, and we wait for people to show their faithfulness before we move them into larger roles. And I was guilty of that earlier this summer, of jumping someone into a larger role before it was time. So it's always a learning process, but there you have it. That's our start. So let's really this week assess where we need people. Let's get specific. What exactly do they need to be doing? Where do they need to have access? Let's get that organized. Let's get that ready. Google Drive, Dropbox is where you want to pull that stuff together. We've got a whole plan in that within our course, but that's where you want to easily be able to share. And then get, what is the role? What does that look like? What are your goals for the organization? We'll talk more about that later. I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm going to leave it there. So number 1, figure out your roles, define those roles. Number 2, make sure you're staying focused on your priorities. And number 3, let's get rid of some of that junk in the area of trust, so we can fully jump in and trust people. If you are looking to further your nonprofit, if you're looking, that goes in all these ways, in the area of people, in the area of finances, in the area of organization, in the area of just everything, mindset, just board development, like all of those different areas. Feel free to hop over to christianrocketeers.com and you can set up a time to chat with us. We will chat with you. We've got a 30-minute rocket plan call that we figure out where you're at, where you want to be, give you the next couple steps to get there, and see if we might be a fit to work together to launch your nonprofit to the next level. So join us over there. Join us again next week. So next week, we normally come live at noon Central Time, but next week, I've got something going on at noon. So we're going to be at 11. So we're going to be an hour earlier next week. So join us next week, Wednesday, right here, but 1 hour earlier. So it's going to be 11 o'clock Central Time. So adjust your time frame accordingly. Eastern would be later. Eastern would be noon. So adjust that. The week after that, we'll go back to noon Central Time. So mark your calendars. If you are in need of people in your nonprofit, you're not going to want to miss it, because we're going to get more into the logistics of where you finding those people and what do all these other pieces and parts look like. All right. So join us at christianrocketeers.com. Mark your calendar for next week's live and the week after, and we will see you then. Have a great rest of your day.